Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Bring It Back. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that were short-lived and or canceled that I would like to see get brought back in some shape or form. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the CBS show Limitless. If you're unfamiliar, Limitless, it's actually kind of interesting, a TV show sequel to the movie. If you're unfamiliar with even what the premise of the movie was, basically Bradley Cooper's character was basically just kind of like didn't work out for this dude, and basically he gets introduced to this pill that it has a specific name, but basically you take it, you become like genius level, but it becomes this whole struggle of like, you know, it's been a while since I've seen the movie, so I don't remember the whole ins and outs of it, but it was almost kind of borderline like a crime drama aspect to it. Basically he kind of, I forget, I think like the pill can be very addictive in its own right, and he has to kind of deal with that, plus the ramifications of like, I think him, like he does some like shady stuff throughout the course of the movie, and it kind of comes back to bite him in the ass type of situation. Like I said, it's been a while, because if I remember correctly, the movie came out in 2011, I want to say. The TV show is a sequel to it. It takes place in that universe. Actually, interestingly enough, Bradley Cooper reprises his role as a character in that show. He's kind of like a governor or a senator or a mayor or something like that. I want to say it might be a governor, I can't remember, but basically he's risen through like the political ranks. It takes place some years after the movie, but the TV show it doesn't actually follow him, because he only pops up in a couple episodes, but basically it follows this dude. I want to say his name was Brian. Basically he's some dude that starts taking the pills, and basically the FBI he falls on the FBI's radar, and so it becomes like this police procedural crime drama where he's basically helping the FBI solve cases. And it was really interesting because the show took a very distinct representation of what it looked like when he was on the pill, because like obviously like when he's on the pill, the world looks brighter and more colorful. That's an aesthetic they took from the original movie. But what was interesting is how, like, when he was basically on the pill, he basically created a version of himself that he kind of talked to and kind of bounce ideas off and stuff like that. It was a manifestation of him on the pill that he would talk to. It was such an interesting aesthetic that I feel like wasn't in the movie. So, but it was a really interesting show, and it took some very interesting directions, especially because he has to keep up this lie about like, hey, like, because the FBI thinks he's just someone that's special, that has a natural, because like basically, like I said, the pills have an addictive drawback that eventually kills a person. Well, the fact is, he seemed like he was immune to the drawbacks and stuff like that, but secretly it was like he basically got help from Bradley Cooper's character, because basically he wanted Brian on the inside because he needed someone to kind of help him with the FBI. So it was like Brian kind of acted like as a mole. He was working with the FBI, but he was also working secretly with Bradley Cooper's character, like, because he had his own like plans about what he wanted, because obviously he's been taking the pill the entire time, so he's seeing like 15 steps ahead of everyone around him. So it's like he has his own plans and stuff like that. Like I said, it's been a while, because I want to say the show came out 2015. Like obviously it was in the 2015 to 2016 season of television, but sadly the show was only one season, which sadly was because they were setting up some interesting stuff at the end of the season where basically Brian was going to basically help the FBI go after Bradley Cooper's character, because it's like, oh, like I said, he's up to some shady stuff, so we're going to take him down. So I wonder, who was it? I want to say it was Ed on SJU. This was a while back, maybe like a couple weeks ago. Might have even been like a month ago. It was a little while back. Ed had actually talked about he liked the TV show, but he didn't like the whole crime drama the police procedural aspect to it. But I think he liked the premise behind the show and stuff like that. Like the whole thing about someone, you know, trying to be greater than what they were. Like, I mean, like I said, it's kind of interesting because Brian was very similar to Bradley Cooper's in the character from the first movie, and so his struggle to try and be something special when he kind of wasn't. Like, that was just kind of an interesting premise. But Ed kind of, you know, because Ed had talked about like a show that, you know, because at that time the episode in particular, they're talking about TV shows they like to see, you know, kind of get brought back, and Ed had kind of thrown out there the Limitless show. Granted, like I said, this was years ago, so at this point in time, it's less likely that anything will ever happen with the show. If you are curious about checking it out, to my knowledge, you can still find all of season 1 on Netflix. So if they did bring back the show, it'd most likely get rebooted. I don't know. I want something done because I think it's such an interesting world. I think there's a lot you could do with that. Like, you know, that's one route they could have gone. So it's like maybe you could bring it back, but shift the direction of it. I mean, personally, I'd rather, once again, it's like once you get associated with a certain set of characters, you want to keep following them. You don't want to just kind of like lose all that, you know. So I'd love to see what, especially with where the story was going, like I would have liked to have seen more of that. But I mean, like I said, it's been so many years, so anything happening at this point is super unlikely. But you know, if I could have it my way, I'd have this show brought back and continued from where it was, because I think it was going into, like I said, an interesting direction. So, but really, that's all I want to talk about in this video. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.